is a spark, it can ignite, and all you gotta do is bring the light. Cause a new light shine, cause a new light shine. Time to get on up, say tradition is mine. Cause a new light shine.
Shalom, everybody. Welcome to the Light Lab podcast, where we play with prayer and hold the gems of our liturgy to the light. My name is Eliana and I am here with my friend, Rabbi Josh Washowski.
Hello at long last.
At long last. And today only Rabbi Josh Washowski, but I'm so excited that you're back on the pod. What have you been up to, my friend?
I am so excited to be back on the pod too. It's really a gift and a joy to always get to do this with you, and I've very much missed it. Oh man, it's been a wild ride over the last many months. I don't even remember the last podcast that I was on, but we added a new member to our family, and then I got a new job. I'm the rabbi at Congregation Agudas Achim in Columbus, Ohio, which is a very sweet and wonderful place. Everyone should come visit Columbus, Ohio. Great place to be. Fastest growing city in the nation. And it's been really special and wonderful to get to try and take a lot of the things that we're talking about and that you and I are doing on the road and see what it feels like to build that and plant that in a community over the long term. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
Beautiful. And of course, still making music, still bringing it to lots of places and bringing it in this concentrated way to one particular community that's so special.
Elu ve'elu, these and these.
These and these. Amen. And time to record our sweet little podcast, which I'm very happy about. So we have our question of the day, thinking about water. What is a sacred experience of water that you have had in the recent past? We'll frame it that way.
I was thinking about this a whole bunch and trying to think about what are those sacred experiences for me. My daughter, now that we pick her up at daycare and there's a sink right in front of the door, so she always, whenever we walk past it, when I'm trying to get to the car so we can go home, she always just goes, wash hands. She always wants to. It's very important for them to wash their hands physically now, or especially because there's a lot of children, a lot of diseases. But that was, that's the first thing that came to mind. But there's not really as much of a spiritual sense to that particular watering in that particular moment. But then this week I was blessed, as I sometimes get to do, to be a part of a Beit Din for two conversions of two of our newest people in the Jewish faith, and to be in this really a beautiful mikvah here in Columbus, and to get to be with these two people. One of them brought her partner who they're about to get married in a couple weeks, and so this was this beautiful ritual for them to take this transitory moment and transitional moment and do something really special with it. And to be present and to just listen as she said her blessings and get to say amen to that and to reaffirm that and to hear the splashes of the water was really beautiful and always is. So I was very honored to get to be a part of that again.
Yeah, what a sacred opportunity, responsibility, gift. I love that. I love mikvah. Maybe we'll do some stuff around mikvah. What came to my mind is kind of like that too. So last summer I had the opportunity to spend some time at Ramah in the Rockies, which is absolutely beautiful in the mountains. It's just gorgeous. But the one thing I was wondering about, I'm like, where's the water, right? We're at camp. There has to be some sort of body of water. And my friend Eitan, who was taking me around, said that there is a little stream that they have forded and dug out in a particular place so that it's deep enough to be a mikvah, quote unquote. Here's the thing that I also learned when I was spending time in Denver the week before about water in Colorado. It is so cold. Oh my gosh, the water is so cold, right? Coming down from the mountains. So refreshing on that day. But I remember like getting into the water and it rushing over me and being absolutely freezing. He's being like, okay, go under. And everything in my body was like, don't put your head underwater. Don't put your head underwater. So I still didn't. But there was something so invigorating. I don't know. I like a polar plunge every now and then. It's like a reset. It's like a shock, which I really like, weirdly. Can be very helpful. But opposite of resets and jumps and shocks, we're still on our sweet and cozy journey through Shabbat at home. We've lit candles. We sang Shalom Aleichem. We've blessed each other around our table. We did Kiddush, which, as you know, is my favorite. But we have this beautiful, seemingly small piece of the ritual that we're going to dedicate a whole podcast episode to, because that's what we do. We dig deep. We're going to wash our hands. We're going to wash our
Seemingly,
hands.
seemingly
Yeah.
small, though in our experience in high school, a USY convention seems to take an exorbitant amount of time.
That's true. It is not the most time efficient thing to do. But honestly, I didn't even put this in the notes, but maybe that's kind of the point. It's like you've done kiddush, you think you're gonna get there, and it's like, nah, we're gonna stretch out the liminal moment in between just even longer before you get to hamotzi.
And when you add the singing and the dancing in, and I know we'll talk about that later, but it really it feels it allows us to feel like the moment isn't just about the food that we're putting on the table, but it's about just being together, and that's what the Shabbat is for. You wash your hands before every meal, hypothetically, but Shabbat at home, there's something elevated we're doing with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Why do we wash our hands at all in a Jewish ritual way before we eat? What do we do? Yeah, I can start. We've talked at certain points on this journey about how after the destruction of the temple, the locus of Jewish ritual life actually moved into the home. One can argue, parts of it moved into the Beit Knesset, into the synagogue, but a significant amount of it moved into the home. And our Friday night table is like our altar, and our chalot, which we'll talk about on our next episode, are like our offering. And so before we offer, we wash our hands. But hand washing before bread, before meals, was actually part of Jewish ritual practice, even when the temple was around. So what's that about? Rabbi Aderet Drucker had this great source sheet on Sefaria. Thank you so much that laid it out, because there were a lot of texts and she kind of put it in order. Basically, the Torah commands us to separate a small percentage of olive oil, wine, and wheat that we produce to give to the Kohanim, because they aren't producing those things, because they're sacredly serving the community. This is called truma, and this kind of separated piece can't become unpure. The rabbis had this idea that hands are always a little bit impure because we're moving in the world, we're touching stuff, so that the Kohen must wash his hands before partaking of truma. But they also didn't want to differentiate between different kinds of grain and different kinds of people, because how were we to know which grains were separated for truma? So everybody now washes their hands before partaking of any kind of bread, which I kind of like, because it means that even though the Kohanim have this kind of elevated status, that we're still all breaking bread together. There's something I really like about that idea.
I really like that too. And I like the idea that even those people who we thought were the quote unquote holiest of people, we assumed were doing just as much touching of unholy things as the regular people. Right? They were the ones who we were instituting this policy for originally, but then to impart it then back to everybody else and say this is something that we can all engage in and that we should all engage in. This is one of those fences around offenses that I actually appreciate.
Absolutely. And that might be kind of the historic reason why we do this ritual, but we also know that rituals then become imbued with so many midrashic possibilities. So like, what else can hand washing do for us in that moment? I'm thinking about how it brings attention to our hands. Perhaps on Shabbat, when we are invited to rest from creating, from producing, and from making, a moment to look at and focus on our hands can be a way to really bring that to the forefront. What have I created with these hands? What have I done with these hands that have been additive to the world? What might I like to repair with these hands? And just kind of, maybe like a little spa moment for the hands. Like, hands, you have done so much. Here's some like cool, refreshing water, so that I can take the time to notice them.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially given the fact that this is just a spiritual washing, right? We're not
Right.
There's no other purpose. We're not cleaning our hands with soap or to get bacteria off. When you're washing your hands for that purpose, the purpose is cleanliness. The purpose here is just to take a moment and notice, right? We talked so many times in this podcast about how Judaism is about awareness. When you say a bracha, you're noticing something and marking that moment in time. So this is another moment to say, what I'm doing is important. When I'm gathering, when I'm doing these things on Shabbat, there's this added holy. When I'm eating, there's an added holiness and gratitude and a moment to notice. And, kind of like what we were talking about in the very beginning of this podcast, it feels like, and almost like that spa moment you were saying, it feels like that you're dipping your hands in something. It's almost like a mikvah moment for your hands, right? It changes the status of our hands from hands that were going around doing all this stuff to hands that are pure enough to eat off of. That are spiritually ready to engage in this really both physical and spiritual endeavor of sustaining our bodies.
Absolutely. And what we said before, what you noticed about it taking time, allowing us to revel in that, allowing us to kind of delight in that moment, to feel the coolness of the water on our fingers, to be brought back into our bodies before we partake of the meal, which, Friday night dinner, it's about the food, but it's also really not. It's about being together. And water also, I think, can serve as a reminder before we eat of how all of this food got to us. Water being such a critical part of our ecosystem, without which we wouldn't have any food to eat at all. And as we'll talk about, I'm assuming next time with hamotzi, it's planting a seed that will continue allowing us to bring into our awareness all of the processes that went into making all of this food possible.
I mean, now that you're saying that, I'm sure this was not originally a part of it, but we have so much, like in the all the rituals that lead up to moti, right? We have flame, which we're like cooking or baking, and then we have fermentation, like the yeast that's rising, that was the wine. And then you have the water that's added into it. Like you have all these different pieces of it that add into the final process to get to the challah. Or each one of them has their own significance, of course, but that there's an interesting recipe that's being created to get us to the bread on the table there.
Whoa, that's cool. I like that a lot. This is great, right? This is like I've been thinking about this sometimes in terms of midrashic possibilities that, yes, again, they're the historical reasons for rituals. And then the rituals in the liturgy are almost like the clays or the paint through which we can create. Our listeners might have heard, I think chronologically, last time's interview with Rabbi Eliana Allen from the Jewish Studio Project, talking about this as well, like Judaism as the stuff, the materials through which we can create and weave and bring more beauty into our lives and into the world. Nice. So, like many Jewish rituals, maybe even most of them, we have a blessing where we are invited to say to bring us into the moment. So let's look more closely at the words of this blessing. Josh, want to read it for us?
Sure. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim. I've got the Siddur Sim Shalom here. The Hebrew the English it has is, praised are you Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, instilling in us the holiness of mitzvot by commanding us to rinse our hands.
Rinse. Interesting.
Rinse.
Right. So we've talked on this podcast before about the blessing formula. Feel free to take a listen back to that episode. That Asher Kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu is an invitation into a ritual moment that is imbued with holiness, can be imbued with holiness. We imbue it with holiness, however we want to see that. And we can see mitzvot, we've talked about before, as commandments, as commitments, as invitations. But we're being invited to do the thing that it says at the end of the blessing, which is al netilat yadayim. Okay, netilat. What does that word mean? I don't think it's the word for wash. What's going on there?
Yeah, lintol is usually to pick up or like lift up. So it's interesting that we use the word rinse there. I think it's probably to connect the blessing itself for those who are being translated for into the actual action. Natal, I think, is to lift up or to place.
Yeah, I always learned it as about the raising of the hands. And again, I don't remember who taught me this, but it was instilled in me that raising is connected to the raising of the loaves of challah. But now that I'm thinking about it, only the person saying hamotzi raises the chalot in the air usually. So yeah, I'm wondering about what that word raise can do for us there. Maybe it's a reminder that this isn't a washing like any other washing, that there's something that's being elevated through this washing.
I like that. And I mean, I think we'll talk about this a little bit later, but also in the different moments where the priests have washed their hands, one of those moments is right before they go and they bless all the people. And what they're doing at that moment is they're raising up their hands to bless all the people. So I wonder if this bracha is associated with that also, with the act that we're about to engage in, right? We're washing these hands so that we can then raise them and offer a blessing, which I guess would apply to this Shabbat one as well, right? We're raising our hands to then offer a blessing.
I love that. We have netilat, and then we also have yadayim, which means hands. But is there any midrashic possibilities that we're seeing in yad or yadayim?
The other moment and thing that comes to mind is that a yad is like a monument, right? You put in our notes here, the most famous yad that people know about is Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem, which is a hand and a name, but also a monument and a name. It comes from the prophets, a moment of memory and something to plant ourselves in, to instill it.
Yeah, and that it is through our hands, which are kind of then become this like catch-all, I think, for our creative potential. Through our hands, we build that which can last in the world longer than we do. Like the work of our hands outlives us. And those are the monuments that we create, right? A monument represents something, but it lasts way longer than the people that created it. So a reminder that the work that we are engaged in, the other 6 days of the week, has the potential to last. So what can that instill in us? What responsibility that can that bring into our awareness about what is it that we are creating that will last?
I like that a lot. We're doing this podcast right before Parshat Behar. We're recording, and we were talking a little bit about you get the mitzvah of Shemitah, which is letting the land lie fallow for a year every 7 years. In the beginning of this week's parsha, the way that it's phrased, we were talking about in our Torah study class yesterday, is that when you arrive in the land of Israel, the first thing you do is you give the land a land of Shemitah, a land of Shabbat, a land of some kind of rest to God. And the idea there, I think, which was different from the way that I thought about it before, is that Shabbat is first, right? You get there, the land rests first, and then you get 6 years of working, and then there's another rest. But you start with the resting, or you start with the lifting up, the raising up. And that sort of fits with one, creation, right? Human beings created on the 6th day. What's the first thing they do? Shabbat, right? Yeah. And then they go into the rest of the week. So what is it like? What is it? Usually we think of Shabbat as the 7th day, but if we think of Shabbat as day 1, what does it look like? And what does it feel like to be able to set an intention, right? To do these blessings, to raise up our hands, and then to go out into the world after Shabbat and do that work that you were just talking about, to leave that legacy that lasts longer on this earth than we do. I'm starting from a place of invigoration and complete rest.
Yeah, and I think it's a nice reminder that I always need, that rest, as is given to us in the gift of Shabbat, I think is very different than we often talk or hear about rest kind of in the more general world, where why do we rest? So that we can be more productive at work and make more things and make more money for our bosses. It's kind of with mindfulness too, right? Why are we bringing mindfulness into the workplace? So that we can be more productive workers, not because it is our Holy One given right and responsibility to rest. And so starting with Shabbat kind of also then I think I'm thinking about how rest or self-care, often, at least for me, comes when I'm already burnt out. So like, it doesn't even feel like rest. It feels like I'm getting back up to even just a functional place. And then I go back into my work, as opposed to rest, which is truly restorative. And it's just another reminder that I think so much of Shabbat is about tasting the potential of what the world could be, not to stay in it forever and not to say, well, I have Shabbat and so I don't have to do anything for other people, but to wonder what would it be like if it was Shabbat more often for more people? What would it be like if everybody could have the taste of that rest, the taste of that Shabbat? Because we know that for many circumstances, particularly economic circumstances, there are people that just don't have the opportunity to take that rest. What can starting with that rest do for us? Not just I get to have rest, but what would it look like to work towards a world, again, in those 6 days with our hands, where it's more like Shabbat for more people more of the time? And with that, we'll be right back.
Shine, shine a new light. Shine, shine, keep it burning bright. Shine, 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 shine a new light. Shine,
Welcome back.
shine.
Let's talk about the ritual itself and how we do it, because we've already mentioned that it's not like a regular washing with soap and water. There are a couple of key distinct features, including a very special ritual object. Josh, can you describe for our audience what a washing cup might look like?
Sure. I think most of the washing cups that I've seen that are specifically designed for the purpose of this washing, it looks kind of like a wide-brimmed vase, but with 2 handles, as opposed to like a regular pitcher that might have one handle. The idea being that when you're pouring, you could hold it with one hand on one of the handles and pour over one of your hands, and then grab the other handle with that hand and do the same ritual on the other side. But then each hand gets its own individual offering, and each hand gets its own individual choice to move into the washing itself.
Beautiful. When I was looking this up, of course, I was like, what's going to be out there about washing? Of course, so much halachic minutia has been written about what does it need to be? You know, how do we take this idea that, oh, the Kohanim wash their hands, we wash our hands for truma, and translate that. So the first key is that it needs to be from a vessel. It can't just be from the sink. The water has to be in something already. And in one of the books that I was looking at, it quotes the philosopher Mark Elaine O'Connor. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. This quote that I love, that pouring from a pitcher teaches us to receive with appreciation and to give with grace. That we are both in the moment of pouring, giving, and receiving, and what it means at the beginning of Shabbat to bring our attention to the gifts that we are receiving, and that you have to pour it yourself kind of differently for when, you know, in the temple times, kind of talking more about the sacrifices and not about truma, it was the Levi'im, the Levites, that would wash the hands and feet of the Kohanim. But here, it's pouring from your own hands. Now, the word that it used in the Shulchan Aruch was koach gavra. It's got to be poured from your own power. I could not find the Torah source for this about the vessel and the power, but if one of our listeners does, please let us know. What might the midrashic possibilities be of this? It has to be in a vessel, and it has to be poured from your own koach, from your own power.
The idea of it coming from a vessel as opposed to from running water or some other source shows that, in some ways, shows the finiteness of it, right? There's only enough water as is in the vessel. And so we use it for its ritual purpose. I like koach gavra, right? The strength of the individual, and the giving and receiving is really powerful, to be able to be doing those at the same time, to have one hand be the giver and one hand be the receiver, and then to flip and have each hand get to experience that. There's something really powerful about getting to experience both of those in any particular moment of giving and receiving, but to be doing both at the same time, I think is an empowering moment for any human being to say, I can and I have the power to be both giver and receiver. And often for no matter who is the person who's doing this ritual, this is who they are, right? It often, there's lots of things in the Talmud about various different holiday and Shabbat celebrations, and if you might not have enough money or anything to gather to make a huge feast for a holiday or for a Shabbat, there are a few things that you're supposed to make sure that you have. One is like a little bit of wine for Kiddush or something to be able to light candles with. But this water, this being able to just take any sort of vessel and pour it on yourself, this is some kind of ritual that hopefully anyone would be able to have the strength and the power to engage in.
Hmm. And that even if they might not be able to for whatever reason, that we can help. That when it says by your own power, if someone might not have the ability with their hands to do that, that it's something that we can all pitch in and help with. Because I'm also thinking about the custom that you fill the washing cup for the next person when you're done, which I didn't see anything about in these halachic sources, but I've known. For me, it just, I get there and the pitcher is full. So you kind of wash your hands for yourself by your own power, but it doesn't mean that you keep that to yourself. You're passing on that gift. And just a book recommendation for everybody out there, which kind of keeps coming up in my life. It's called The Gift by Lewis Hyde. I read it because it was being quoted by so many other writers and teachers I cared about, and it's really been transformative. It's all about the power of gifts and the difference between an economy focused on transactions and one based on gifts. That a gift creates and maintains a relationship and a reciprocation and imbues the thing that is given with meaning in a way that transactions do not. And so I think because, again, all of these Shabbat things, because we are not engaging in commerce on Shabbat, we're not buying and selling, we're not using money. All of our transactions are gifts. All of our transactions are gift transactions. And that can be a reminder that Shabbat is bigadol in large, like in a big way, that all of this is a gift, that the world is a gift and life is a gift and the earth is a gift and each other is a gift. That kind of big idea distilled into this little moment where we get to give that gift of a full water pitcher to the next person.
The one other thing, first of all, I loved all of that, and I literally just ordered the book. And and
Oh,
at the
great.
same time, the one other thing I'll add is we fill up the water and we present the gift, but we don't give it to the person, right? We don't place it in their
Right.
hands. We place it back down, similar to at a funeral. When we're burying somebody, it's a gift of chesed shel emet, right? It's a love, a truth based on loving kindness. It's a gift that can never be repaid when you're going to bury the dead. And the idea that we're doing it is each person is taking it upon themselves to do that ritual on their own. So you put when you're finished shoveling a few shovelfuls of dirt into the grave, you place the shovel back in the dirt for the next person to pick up and grab it, so that each person can take on this ritual for themselves. So even though we're presenting the person with this gift, with this water cup, filling it up for them so it's ready for them to receive, we allow each person to take ownership over it for themselves.
Yeah. There's something about dignity in there too, I think.
Yeah.
The dignity of choice, of getting to do it yourself. And so often, you don't know necessarily who the next person is that's going to be at that sink, and you leave it for them anyway. Yeah. This is great. This is like every time we do this podcast, like the next time I say that prayer or do that ritual, it's like so much more meaningful because we've spent hours researching it and an hour talking about it. So what a gift. There we go.
I feel exactly the same way. And we're planning our educational calendar for next year, and I already have plans for a podcast group where we're going to go through, first of all, the Siddur and all the different rituals that we've done. Hopefully we're going to bring in guest teacher Eliana Light to talk to us a little bit about it. But this is something that I think is a really wonderful thing that people can do in so many communities. Is there's so many resources that are here in this moment that Eliana is gathering and providing and getting to share with all of us, and to be able to discuss them and think about them in community, I think only empowers us to take ownership over these rituals even more so for ourselves in the future.
Amen. That was a great pitch.
Good fun.
Speaking of pitchers, yeah. There we go. Okay, so we have our special cup full of water. We are at the sink or sometimes water fountain or wherever we are. What do we do? So I grew up with, I think, because now I have to kind of go through it in my head because it just kind of happens automatically. Okay, pitcher in the right hand, pour it once over my left hand, palm side down, then once palm side up and once palm side down. Switch hands, and then once palm side down, once palm side up, one palm side down, in the left hand over the right. In the right hand on the left hand, in the left hand for the right hand. Yeah. What about you, Josh? We're pausing for a moment.
Sorry.
No, do it. We can pause. Pausing for a
I
moment.
just thought maybe I would see what these two books say.
Oh, yes.
Did you
Josh,
look in this?
Which book?
This is Klein's Guide to Jewish Religious Practice.
Oh, no. I probably have
Friday Night at Home.
We can leave part of this in because this is what's great about recording with Josh and Ellen is that they are practitioners with lots of books. And we just like, let me look that up for a second at my home library.
Well, this one isn't particularly helpful, so we can cut this part out. But
We cut
after
this-
Kiddush, the hands are washed. In some places, the hands are washed. That's it. That's all.
Huh?
This is The Observant Life by Martin Cohn, and it usually has some nice things. Let's
Okay.
see. Here we go. Prior to reciting the blessing for bread, we perform the ritual of washing hands, known as nitilat yadayim. Rings are removed so that the water comes in contact with all parts of the hand.
Oh, we didn't mention that yet.
I
Yes.
didn't mention that. Then a vessel is filled with water. The water is poured over the right hand and then over the left hand at least twice, although some follow the custom of pouring water 3 times over each hand. So that's what the Siddur Sim Shalom has a little note in here also. Each participant at the meal pours water 2 or 3 times over each hand, alternating hands. So I think if I'm understanding that correctly, which is not what my practice has been, but maybe what my practice will be, you take the cup, you put it in your, actually it doesn't say which hand goes first, but I think we looked and said that maybe the right hand either
Does it
right
pour
hand
first
receive.
or does it receive first?
That's a great question. We're gonna keep it. We'll put this in the show notes. But one hand, I usually grab it with my right hand first because I'm right-handed. Right, give it the strength first. There could be a nice midrash about letting it receive first as the dominant hand. I don't know. We could, but take it. You pour it over your left hand. You take the cup in your left hand. You pour it over your right hand. You take the cup in your right hand. You pour it over your left hand. You take the cup in your left hand. You pour it over your right hand, and then you shake it all about. And then you do the hokey pokey. But the idea is, I think what I've noticed in both of these two sources is that we alternate hands every single pour rather than 1, 2, 3 on one hand and then 1, 2, 3 on the other hand.
I have seen that before. It's hard because, as we'll talk about, I did write a song about Nitilat Yadayim, and it does have instructions that you put it in your right hand and do 1, 2, 3 on the left side of the 1, 2, 3 on the right side. So perhaps it's a minhag, it's a custom, I don't know, or else I'll have to re-record in the right hand and on the left hand, and then in the left hand and on the right hand, and it's not so catchy, but we can do it. And make it happen. And again, friends, if you have different customs for washing your hands, you can let us know in our Facebook group. Maybe I really want that to be more of a place where we talk about these things. So maybe we can do that because I'd love to hear what everybody does. When do you say the blessing?
Hand, give and receive. In the left hand, give and receive.
There you go. Now I don't have to record
Version
it.
2.
Version 2, give and receive. I love that because it gives us an opportunity to talk about the gift. So good. So good. Thank you, Josh. It's fabulous. Yeah. When do you say the blessing in this process? Like you, the book, but also you, the you person.
Me, the me person, says the blessing. You do the ritual, and then you lift up your hands. I think you mentioned that you do that also. Lift up your hands so you can see the thing that you're about to give a blessing on, and then you say the blessing on the hands. After I usually dry my hands first, and then no, I don't. I guess sometimes no. I guess I usually say it, and then I dry my hands. Oh, I guess I have to think more intentionally about it.
Well,
what about you?
There's a way in which like there is intention, but it's also muscle memory. You know,
Yes.
It's like I don't necessarily have to think about it, but that doesn't mean I'm doing it mindlessly. I think I usually say the blessing either before or while I'm drying my hands. And yeah, I think I lift up my hands and look at them mostly because learning that natilat means raising and not wanting it to be a blessing in vain. I guess I'll raise my hands because that's what this is about. But it also is a nice opportunity to look at them and notice them having done the blessing.
The
or the
Observant Life,
ritual.
which was edited by Rabbi Martin Cohen of Roslyn, New York, says that it notes that you do the ritual and then you recite the blessing and then the hands are dried. I don't know. Again, I don't know if that's
Mhm.
if it's custom or something else. That's what he says to do here.
Yeah. That's nice. Also, there's again this like elongating of this moment to say, get the water off my hands, to immediately dry them. But that again, we're taking a beat just to feel and to notice maybe what's different about our hands from when we started. Or maybe we look at our hands and we're like, I should also do a non-ritual washing of the hands, because none of this is to say that you shouldn't wash your hands with soap and water before you eat. That's probably a good thing, but that this is a different thing. Okay, another custom that I grew up with was between saying the bracha, the blessing, and washing the hands, doing the ritual, and hamotzi, that we don't talk except to maybe talk about the challah, to talk about the bread. But other than that, we don't talk. You grew up with this too, right? Right, Josh? We've been in
I did
plenty
grow
of
up with it
spaces.
too. Yeah, we don't talk often. I think we're going to mention this in a few minutes, but often we'll sing a nigun or a wordless melody, but that there's no talking in between those rituals. This is something that happens ever so often in the liturgy as well, that there is silence between two things so as to juxtapose one thing immediately to the next thing. The clearest example is in our morning liturgy, lismoch geula litfila, to juxtapose the redemption to the capital P prayer, which is to connect our Michamocha prayer straight into the asking and reflection and gratitude of the Amidah itself. So here in this moment, I think also to connect this ritual washing to the thing that we're washing so that we can do the next thing, which is we're washing so that we can eat and receive. So we connect both of them to each other.
And there's something really powerful about that silent moment, which is that perhaps like the hand washing, as opposed to all of these other rituals for Friday night, is done individually. It has to be you that lifts the cup. It's you that washes your hands. It's like a little personal mikvah moment. And then carrying that spirit kind of into our collective hamotzi. So we're coming together as all individuals who have done the same ritual, but now we're about to do this thing and break into community. But there's something like nice either about that silence or nigun, like all of these different people interweaving together. I also think I used to do silly things like pretend to have a conversation, but using nigun syllables like yailalai, yailalai, lalai, or sometimes like chala chala, chala, chala chala chala. So a time for silliness also, I guess, if you're me. Yeah. But yeah, something about that connection. Wondering also about ways to bring that kavanah, that intention, to the washing. We've already talked about a couple of things. Pausing before you say the blessing to raise and to notice your hands, to feel the water on your hands, to notice the moment where the water hits your hands. How does it feel? What kind of patterns does it do? I finally finished. I had one chapter left. I finished Tova Spitzer's book, God is Here, which we've talked about, and we interviewed Rabbi Tova Spitzer on this podcast. And she talks about taking time while the hands are underwater to connect to the metaphor of God as water, to connect to divine flow. And she suggests some biblical water-related names that I really love, that I would just like to read some for us. Ma'ayan HaYeshua, the well of liberation. Peleg Elohim, the river of God. Mekor Mayim Chayim, the fount of living waters. Mayim Ne'emanu, faithful waters. Nachad Aranecha, torrent of delight. I like that one. Tehom, the deep. So many different ways of connecting to the divine source as water. And how can we use our moments where we're interacting ritually with water to bring those ideas in? And with that, we'll be right back.
Gotta wash up my washing cup. Gotta up with my washing cup. Gotta wash up with my washing cup. Gotta wash up, gotta wash up, gotta wash up with my washing cup. Al netilat yadayim. Al netilat yadayim. In the right hand.
Okay, and we're fading out before I give potentially the wrong instructions for what to do during hand washing. We were having a little dance party there. That was fun. This is my song Al Netilat Yadayim from the album Eliana Sings About Jewish Things, which was all about ritual objects. And, I didn't really know a song about the washing cup. And knowing what I know now after this episode, I would go back and rewrite a couple things, but we'll include a link to the song in the show notes. I know that my friend Rabbi Abi Schachter Gampel in Memphis uses this with his preschoolers at the JCC, which I was so in awe of. I don't think I've ever actually done this song with kids in a ritual context. And so the fact that all these little kiddos can sing Al Netilat Yadayim to the song is kind of fun. Josh, there was a song about hand washing that you and I grew up singing that is known by many versions all over the place. And it's to the tunes of When the Saints Go Marching In. Would you like to hum a few bars?
Oh, when the Jews go wash their hands.
Go wash their hands.
Oh, when the Jews go wash their hands. Oh, how I want to be in the mitzvah. Is that the words you know?
Yes, in the mitzvah or in the bracha.
In the bracha, nice. Oh, and the Jews go wash their hands.
Beautiful. Thank you. No, I was like giving like little clues and I'm like, when is he going to get which thing I'm talking about?
Well, I knew from the start. I just was waiting for the right moment to jump in.
Oh yeah. Okay. Of course. How silly of me to even doubt for a second. Of course, When the Saints Go Marching In, is a song about the apocalypse from a Christian perspective, hypothetically, but we've taken it and we've switched it around. Something that I learned, I think, at Hava Nashira from our Reform colleagues. I don't know which camp, but if you were at a camp where you did this, to switch it around and say, oh, when the Jews go wash their ears, oh, when the Jews go wash their ears, they say Al Netilat Oznaim, oh, when the Jews go wash their ears. Because that's another ending. They say Al Netilat Yadayim, and then you put in all these other parts of the body. When the Jews go wash their eyes, it's so funny to me. They say Al Netilat Einaim.
I love it. That's a good Hebrew teaching moment too.
Yeah, it's a great way to teach with different words.
1, 2, wash your hands. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu, b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, al netilat yadayim, al netilat yadayim. Wash your hands and we
That comes
Very
to
sweet.
us. Yeah, from Rabbi Ari Kaplan at Camp Hess Kramer, where our friend Charlie Kramer was the song leader for many years. He sent that recording to me. There's also this really beautiful, we'll include a link to the whole thing in the show notes, this beautiful section in between, because the end of the melody is Hamotzi, and then there's a little Kavanah in between, which is really nice. Okay, here are the words, because I didn't know what they came from. Baruch el asher bara mazon lachol, v'tova v'livracha, v'anachnu ba'amen nodelo, baruch hu u'varuch shemo. Baruch el asher bara mazon, right? Blessed is the one that created sustenance to everybody in goodness and in blessing. And all of us, but amen, I like that kind of with an amen, will give gratitude to the Holy One. Blessed be their name. So these are some melodies that teach the blessing for hand washing. But of course, as we've been mentioning, the liminal moment of hand washing is great for nigunim. And there are particular melodies that over time have become associated with that moment. Josh, I learned one from you. Again, Havanashira coming up a lot in this episode, which makes sense because I got back from Havanashira yesterday. So it would probably come up in my day even if we weren't necessarily talking about hand washing. But I remember our first Shabbat there, I think it was you and Josh Sachs and maybe a couple other people who sang a nigun that I had never heard before.
Yeah, that one I learned it with Josh Sachs. I went to visit my brother at Indiana University, where Josh was also a student, and we went to the Aish house on campus, and they sang this nigun as everybody went from the dining room to the kitchen of the house to go wash their hands, and it was sort of like a small alleyway, so it took a long time. We just sang it a whole bunch of times, and I really liked it. So I sing it all over the place. I don't know where it comes from other than I learned it from them. Dum bum 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 bottom 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 dum bum 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 ba da dum bum 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 bottom 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 dum bum 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 ba da dum ay 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 ay.
It's so fun.
Joyful.
And it also kind of feels like we're getting up to do something. Here we go to do it. It's just like a little motivating one. The one that I grew up with at camp, and I think also at home, though I don't know which one came first. Usually we would sing in, out, heel, toe, switch, because there's a dance to it, which is also great for this little moment where you all kind of stand in lines and you run one way and you run the other way, then you kick your feet and you go in, out, heel, toe, switch, and you switch lines. I asked some internet friends, like, what is this melody and where does it come from? And nobody could find it. So Light Lab listeners, if you know the source of either of these nigunim, please let us know. And let us know if you have nigunim that you particularly like for hand washing. We need some more hand washing nigunim. Okay. We have come to the end of our episode. So let's take a little moment for a little practice. If you're in a place where you can pause, where you can pause this episode and wait, where you can sit and feel a spot where you are connected to the earth through your feet or through your seat. Settle in. If you'd like, you can roll your shoulders back. Allow your hands to fall on your lap, palms down to give or palms open to receive, or maybe one of each. You can imagine that your spine is a ladder from heaven to earth and earth to heaven. Maybe soften your jaw and your face. Maybe you want to close your eyes or focus on a spot in front of you. And just start to notice your breath going in and coming out. And with each breath in, I invite you to imagine water trickling down with every out breath. You can imagine the start of a water pour at the in-breath. And as you breathe out, feeling and sensing and feeling all of that water pouring down. You could imagine this coming from the top of your head or maybe in your heart space, maybe if there's a place in your body which needs it the most. These waters of being, these waters of rest, these waters of calm. Can you take a few moments to do that ritual for yourself and feel those calming waters, those cleansing waters, just bringing you to the present moment, reminding us of our inherent interconnection as all water comes from the same source. And there is no new water in the world, only the water that has been consistently in motion since the time of creation, breathing and feeling that cleansing water, that cool water, and knowing that water is always there, so that the next time you come into contact with water on your hands, know that that is water from the source of life, from the source of all. And give yourself that gift of delighting in that water and delighting in that rest. Josh, I'm wondering if I can ask you the question I've started asking our interview subjects on the pod, which is that before we leave, can you give us a blessing?
I'm sitting in this moment of gratitude and holding on to this moment and trying to frame it into the form of a blessing. May we be blessed with the knowledge and understanding of the abundance of water in the world, how beautiful it is for there to be water, and also how difficult it is when it's lacking, to know when we have the right amount of water, just like we should know when we have the right amount of blessing. When we say the blessing on Shmini Atzeret, asking us to pray for rain, we say, Livracha velo liklala. May the rain be for a blessing and not for a curse. May we be able to understand and be comfortable with the amount of blessing that we receive, the amount of water that washes over us, and know the difference between a blessing and a curse, between abundance and lack, and be able to hold on to what's in between, to give and to receive today and tomorrow.
Amen. Thank you so much, Josh. Thank you so much for being here with me. I hope we get to do it again very soon.
We do.
And thank you so much for listening, my friends. Thank you to Rachel Kaplan for producing and editing. Thank you to Yafa Englander for our show notes, which are copious. Should you want to look up any of the things that we've been talking about today, find that along with even more goodness at lightlab.co. Follow us on socials at thelight.lab. And can't wait to see you again very soon. Shalom.